So, very nice to have a chance to be with you again today. So, I wanted to share a little bit more about building a habit of meditation, or building the habits of meditation, or other versions of our spiritual practice. Sort of talking broadly about this topic of habits. It's prompted by my finally actually getting around to reading the book Atomic Habits that I've talked about. What was written on the dust jacket for off and on for a year, but and it really is very nicely aligned. Whatever he's done to research that, and very nicely aligns with um, a lot of other key concepts that I had learned in the spirit of meditation. So that was very encouraging. Um, and obviously we have a chance to start here, and this social context gives us some excuse and opportunity to build the habit of meditation together, right? So we create some structure and the kind of social structure around that, but we need to figure out other ways to begin to create these habits in our life. Just the habit of returning to a peaceful state of mind, or not getting as far away from a peaceful state of mind for as long. Figuring that out, it's something that we can build our skill in. Um, so I'll guide us through a meditation. One of the things we can do is to just look at our thought processes while we're meditating as habits, right? The habit of our mind focusing on our breath, or the habit of our mind wandering off to think about something else. And just think, a habit is just exercising something that's easy. It's just repeating a pattern that's quite natural. And so the things we contemplate when we meditate, or, intentionally or unintentionally, are often the same things that we're contemplating in our daily life. We're figuring out how to solve problems. We're remembering pleasant and unpleasant things that have happened recently, and bits of news and so forth. There's all kinds of stuff happening, but a lot of familiar patterns that we can just watch. And part of the key is just getting to know the movements in our mind that are common and natural, and recognizing how shifting those can be a slow process, but is absolutely something that we can shift. So that's a mindset we can take into this initial meditation. So, as usual, we can take a deep breath in and out just to reset. We can find a comfortable position for our body, closing our eyes if that helps us to reduce our distractions. Another deep breath, and just inviting ourselves to relax, just sending that message to our body to relax. And then we can ask ourselves, what is important now? We just begin by bringing our awareness to whatever sensations are around us, the light or sights, even light creeping through our eyelids, any sounds around us, my voice, background noise, any smells if there are any in your environment, tastes, even the background taste of our own saliva. And then especially our tactile awareness. Our tactile awareness is the most basic of our senses. It is also the closest. Our entire body is a sense organ. Huge. It is our largest sense organ. Millions of nerve endings. And most of the time we just ignore all of this information. But we can feel the temperature now of the room. Feelings of comfort or discomfort. The way we're holding our body weight. We need to learn how to hold our body's weight in an uplifted way, in a balanced way. We can start with the corners of our mouth, just lifting into a small smile. We can feel even our heart, lifting it up slightly, feeling our chest be proud and open. Pulling our belly in just slightly. Not going to the extreme of becoming tense, but also not going to the extreme of slouching. So some middle way with our posture. And in particular, we can notice that there is never a perfect posture because our body is always in motion. Our breath, as it comes in and out, swelling our chest and our belly, creating these very slight micro movements. And we are naturally accommodating to them. One of our fundamental habits is simply our posture, how we hold our body. It is a discipline that we can practice to try to keep a slight smile on our face. Makes us feel better, makes the people around us feel better. And it helps us to train, even physically. We have spent just 5 minutes here, settling into meditation. And this hopefully shows us that inner peace is not far away. Even a very small increase in our inner peace is a huge improvement compared to having an anxious or unhappy mind. The structure of our body is pretty obvious, and the movements or dynamics of our body are also fairly clear. There is the movement of our breath, the movement of our blood, our outer movement, digestion, speaking, sexual desire, fear. These things, they play back and forth between the mental and the physical. The movements, the structures in our mind are invisible. The dynamics and movements of our mind are invisible. They're more subtle, which is why we begin meditation by focusing on the body, but gradually get to know our own mind, our own habits, our own tendencies. And the habits and tendencies that we have internalized, but are, in a sense, not really ours. There are habits that are instinctive, the desire to eat, stay warm, sexual desires, anger, jealousy, and so forth. These things are very innate, instinctive. There are habits we've cultivated from our parents, adopted from our parents, friends, influences. And there are some habits that we have built ourselves consciously. But we can know that when we are working with our own mind, we are changing the entire world. We are working with the whole lineage of our genetics, the way that has predisposed us. We're working with our culture. We're working with our job, friends, environment. It is no small feat to change your mind. Like Archimedes said, if you give me a lever long enough, a firm place to stand, I can move the earth. So building inner peace through meditation gives us leverage by going deeper inside our mind. So we can first of all just encourage ourselves by enjoying this time in meditation. And by this, it means consciously enjoying, focusing on any pleasant feeling that we have and just amplifying it, enjoying, just savoring. The more you focus on a pleasant feeling, the stronger and more pronounced it will become. So we can just spend the remainder of this meditation just enjoying any pleasant feelings or the absence of painful feelings. And anytime our natural habits of mind draw us away from our meditation, we just return to the conscious enjoyment. And we can develop a warm heart by bringing to mind those who have been kind to us, and developing a feeling of gratitude for them. And even the people who provoke us, we can feel that they are especially kind because they show us the real nature of our mind. We can feel grateful for them as well. And we develop the intention to listen deeply, take the teachings to heart, so that we can increase our capacity to repay the kindness of those around us. Then we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation. This I guess just to recapitulate some points that I shared in the from this book, Atomic Habits and Spirit of Building Habits. The reason this has some strong meaning for me is that the whole job of trying to practice Dharma, practice the spiritual path, it's all about building habits, unbuilding some habits, building other habits. You tend to get angry all the time. Well, here's some like 50 techniques for not getting angry so much and turning it around and being grateful for the people who are super difficult to deal with in your life. And look at that. That's great. You can, instead of having the habit of anger, your habit of anger gets weaker, 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 weaker. Your habit of patience gets stronger, 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 until eventually you're just like so happy, comfortable being around the people that previously were unbearable. And that's a transformation, it's a reversal. There's a beautiful line, there's a text called Training the Mind in 7 Points. And one of the verses there is, the indication of having trained is reversal. The indication of having trained is reversal. The sign that you've really trained is that there is a reversal of your ordinary pre-existing attitudes. Where previously we had some miserliness, now we're quite generous. Previously we were impatient, angry, now we're quite patient, and previously quite self-centered, now we're quite focused on others. So it's, but it's not. There are, so that's the job of spiritual practice. Overcome some bad habits, build better, more useful, more skillful habits. Even calling these habits bad and good can sometimes be a little bit unskillful. So Buddha often referred to them as unskillful habits versus skillful habits. The bad and good kind of taps right into this sense of, we all have this sense of bad and good, which goes with like in group and out group. Which people are bad, which people are good. I want to be with the good people. I don't want to be with the bad people. I certainly don't want to be a bad person. So when you're training your habits, there's 3 things that are really hard. And I mentioned these before, but recognizing your mental habits, your bad mental habits or unskillful mental habits, reducing those unskillful mental habits, and eliminating those unskillful mental habits. Those three things are difficult, but the most difficult is the first of them, just recognizing or acknowledging that there is any possibility, even the slightest possibility, that we might have some unskillful mental habits. This morning I was, I don't know, I forget what it was. I had some interaction and immediately just started thinking, grumbling to myself. And I started thinking, you're just jealous and unhappy because you're not getting your way. And then immediately this very helpful voice piped up and said, no, 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 that's not it at all. No, 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 you actually are perfectly correct. It's just these people are very unreasonable and they're idiots, for lack of a better word, and they just don't understand how brilliant your idea was. And, you should feel a bit bad about yourself and talk badly about them so that other people take their opinion less seriously. And then that seemed convincing enough. It was a fairly convincing explanation. That's normally the explanation I hold in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I'm basically brilliant. Most other people just, intelligent only to the degree that they agree with my opinion, and otherwise not. And then this other little quiet voice, shy voice piped up and said, no, no, I think you're just jealous and indignant because they didn't listen to you. And I'm like, can't be, impossible. I'm not that kind of person, right? And there's this little fight, but it is, it's utterly normal for us to be jealous and have a strong sense of self-importance. And if you don't notice that you're jealous, it doesn't mean that you're not jealous. It just means that you don't notice that you're jealous. And that's the interesting thing about this thing that everybody calls mindfulness. Mindfulness, the way it's commonly used in our language these days, really just means noticing, like noticing those things that are going on instead of just thinking me, 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 me all the time. And getting caught up in the me that you are, beginning to notice what's actually going on. And because one of the reasons mindfulness can be tricky is that if there's anything unflattering that we notice, we just immediately don't want to see that, don't want to be like that, because we don't want to be a bad person. We think, oh, I shouldn't be a jealous person, right? But the point is that you're not a jealous person. You're a person with some jealousy in your mind. Right? You're not a jealous person. You're a person with some jealousy in your mind. But what happens is the opposite of mindfulness is just collapsing ourselves into like a certain view and say, I'm like this, I'm like that. The point is you're like nothing and you're like everything, right? Because all of these different minds are going to parade through your heart at different points. You can have all the best minds come through. You have all the worst minds come through. Lots of neutral minds come through. Just give it enough time. And our mind is just the stage on which these players are sort of coming in, up here, entering and exiting. And so rather than referring to these as bad or good mental habits, often it's helpful to refer to them as unskillful, skillful or unskillful. And it's kind of a gentle word, but if you think, there are skillful and unskillful ways to swing a golf club, right? I have basically no skill in swinging a golf club, so I'd be happy to demonstrate the unskillful method at some point. But, it's not bad or good, right? It's just the way I swing it in the absence of skill is not going to get the ball very far. It's probably not going to hit the ball, first of all. And then second of all, it's not going to get the ball very far. And if it does get very far, it's not going to go in the right direction. That's all that unskillful means. It's not that I'm a bad person. So we have these unskillful habits of mind. So for example, my normal reaction to people not listening to my advice, my normal reaction is actually a little bit unskillful. Feel bad for myself, think that they're just idiots because they didn't understand my opinion, and then talk bad about them if I have the chance, right? When people hear me talk bad about other people, what are they going to think? They're going to think, oh, politics. He must be. I wonder why he doesn't like them. Maybe because he's jealous. Because people are totally obvious. They're totally just transparent. Like we more or less know how other people think, right? It's not going to change their behavior. My thinking, my not having respect for another person is not going to make them more likely to listen to me. So think about somebody um, who doesn't respect you. Do you respect their opinion? It's just if somebody doesn't respect us, we naturally tend to not like, we tend to reject them. And so if we have disrespect towards others, it's certainly not going to make them more open to our point of view. So clearly my natural reaction is quite unskillful. It's a habit, it's an unskillful habit of mind. You can call it a delusion if you want. So recognizing these unskillful habits of mind, reducing them, gradually overcoming them, but honestly recognizing them is the hardest of these. So the way we build these habits, so back to the topic of the book. So anyway, I guess just taking it all the way back, the whole purpose of spiritual practice is to train, recognize our unskillful habits, reduce them, overcome them in their place, build more skillful habits, and so forth. But there's a lot that goes into building habits. Because like I said during the meditation, we're really under the influence of so many factors. We're under the influence of our genes, our parents, our society, and the circumstances. And so we need a lot of skill to know how to change our habits. And that's why I like this book so much. It talks about the context, the environment that we're in, and the cues that are around us. So one of the first tips that's given when you meditate, one suggestion every time you meditate, tidy up a little bit. I did a fairly bad job of that today, but I did it for at least, I spent 30 seconds tidying up before our meditation class. Because I'm like, okay, at least some minimal effort, right? Because what it does is it shows you that you can control your outer environment. And that implicitly shows you that you can control your inner environment. And if you really put a lot of energy into cleaning outwardly, then you can really transform the outer environment, make it amazingly clean, right? And similarly, if you put a lot of energy into cleaning the inner environment, you can make it amazingly clean, right? So there's a famous practitioner named Lam Chung who has a long version of the story that I won't tell, but Buddha gave him one practice, which was cleaning practice, sweeping the temple. And he gave him one verse to recite. Abandon dirt, abandon stains, abandon dirt, abandon stains. And he just swept the temple continuously. But as he was reciting that, he gradually realized that Buddha meant not just outer dirt, but inner dirt, not just outer stains, but inner stains. And as a result, he gradually purified his mind just through this kind of cleaning practice. So the first is the context that we're in, the environment, for example, the cues that are around us that stimulate unhelpful habits, unskillful habits, or skillful habits. The second is make it easy. Just make it easy to, and ease your practice, for example, of meditation. Make it easy to meditate. One way to make it easy to meditate, make it really, really short. Make it like one minute. Like, okay, I did it. It was great. How easy was that? Super easy. Like, especially as we're beginning to build up that practice. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 10 minutes, something like that. There's other techniques as well, but the third thing is, let's see. So, this may be a memory fail. So let's see. Make it clear, make it easy, make it satisfying. This may be a memory fail anyway, it'll probably come back to me. But I think the third aspect is to make it, um, it was to increase, the third aspect is to increase your expectation of reward, make it attractive. And the fourth aspect is to make it satisfying, increase your experience of the reward. That our mind is very much oriented around pleasure seeking behavior. And what's interesting is that the whole of Buddhism is really, I can't help returning to this, but it's really structured around a human relationship with pleasure and pain, and our wish to find pleasure and be free from pain. But the deep, profound unskillfulness of the way we go about doing that. Um, that the that naturally all of our behaviors are driven by craving, and this is literally exactly what it says in Atomic Habits, exactly what it says in Buddhist traditional teachings. Every single behavior is driven by some craving, and every time you act on the basis of a craving, you define yourself as a person who, I am a pizza eater because I love pizza, right? That's, or I am a writer because I write, or I'm a cook because I cook, etc. Like, your behaviors define who you are as a person. And so you need to set up an anticipation of reward by making the more skillful habits attractive and making the unskillful habits less attractive. I have trained myself over the years to see most junk foods as poison. Like, I go through I don't see them as edible, and I'm not bragging. There's a lot of people who've trained their mind in that way, but you go to a convenience store and you see all the candy bars and the chips and so forth. And I have somehow early in my life gotten the idea that I don't need I don't need, trans fats. I don't need more sugar. I don't need more salt and fat and so forth. So those things are kind of poisonous in excess, and all these things are excessive. So I just see them as unattractive. But that's something that was cultivated over time. It wasn't automatic or natural, but you can change your mind by changing what you see as attractive and pleasant, and then make it rewarding when you do reduce the rewards, for example, of following unskillful habits, and increase the rewards of following skillful habits. And just I guess the final point here is that you can control your own experience of pleasure consciously. And that was kind of what we did in that meditation, where you just focus on, if you have any pleasant feeling at all, if there's any feeling of relaxation or peace or comfort or whatever in meditation, simply by focusing on it, it enhances it, right? And this is a little bit similar to what we do if you, for example, see some delicious food. It's one thing to sort of see it, but if your mind zooms in on it, it's like you look at that pizza and it's like the molten cheese on there and the golden brown crust and the smell. Your mind just naturally likes to draw into these enjoyments. And what happens is you exaggerate them. You focus on them so much and exaggerate them so much until they become irresistible. And we certainly do the same with people, right? The look of their hair and the smell and their eyes and so forth. And until they just become irresistible. This is the way our mind becomes. It's just very interesting that what you pay attention to will enhance that. So if you pay attention to the attractive qualities of something, it becomes incredibly attractive. If you pay attention to the unattractive qualities, look at the imperfection in the skin, or look at the posture, something like this, then you can develop a negative view of that thing. And your feelings actually change depending on what you pay attention to. And it's funny how this is, our mind just um, our mind just feels a certain way depending on what we pay attention to. It's called appropriate attention or inappropriate attention. It's a little bit like the reins on the, or like the steering wheel on our mind, or the reins on a horse, is the traditional analogy. So anyway, this is a practice that we can do. But all right, why don't we take a minute just or so just for a concluding meditation, and yeah, just to help this to settle in. So, having contemplated these topics, having gained some deeper appreciation of how our mind works and the strong tendencies towards these habits, we can just think our mind is naturally under the influence of so many habits, some of them skillful, many of them unskillful. How wonderful if I could gradually learn how to steer my mind in a more beneficial direction. And how wonderful if I could then gain the ability to help others to steer their minds in more beneficial directions. And just briefly, we can imagine a world in which our own mind was fully under our control, and others' minds also were at peace, joyful, fully in their own control. And then we make a decision as we go through our life to remember some of these points. For example, remembering to keep a smiling face, building these physical habits to help us to build mental habits. And we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation.